The followers are a group of peace-loving punks who preach nonviolence and pacifism. They're also one of the smallest major factions in the first game, containing only 3 named characters: their leader Nicole, a former member of Vault 13, Talius, and a spy named Laura. However, the way they appear in the final game is a mere shadow of the developers' original intentions. This is the cut content of the Followers of the Apocalypse. In the basement of the Followers library, the player can speak to Talius, a FEV mutant similar to Harold. During the conversation, the player can randomly accuse him of being a spy, resulting in the response, "Nay, I am no spy, though many think as such. There is a spy within our humble abode, yet we are unable to ferret the spy out." You can then accuse him once more and threaten to kill him, causing the followers to become hostile. If the player agrees to root out the spy who infiltrated their ranks, you're given the quest Find the Trojan Spy. Starting the quest also makes it impossible to speak to Talius in conversation afterwards, and instead floating text appears stating, "Please, dispense justice upon the defouler who seeks to undermine the trust of the followers." Find the Trojan Spy is an integral part of the Followers' questline, as their good ending is reliant on it being completed, and New Vegas even confirmed this ending as canon.
The Followers of the Apocalypse rise to become a major influence in New California. With your help, they gain control of the LA Boneyard.
Sadly, the spy the player is tasked to find was cut, however, making the quest impossible to complete and causing the canon ending to be inaccessible. As a result, the following ending is always played regardless of your actions.
The mutant armies, led into battle by the fierce super mutants, destroy the Followers of the Apocalypse. Barely human carrion feeders pick over the followers' remains.
It's difficult to glean how this quest would have functioned, as it was seemingly cut very early in production, making it even harder to decipher. It's the single most complex quest in the entire game in terms of global variables, but here's the basics of how it would have played out. Alongside the cut spy, many members of the followers who were a part of the quest were also axed. Each character would provide conflicting information that the spy was a part of one of 4 subgroups of the followers: the scouts, the guards, the initiates, or the scholars. While the scholars still appear as generic characters, nearly all traces of the other groups would be removed. The guards are definitely the most interesting, as the followers have no armed characters in their base. Further, it's mentioned that the scouts raid and attack the children's base at the cathedral, suggesting the faction were more militarized in comparison to their eventual incarnation. Nicole still hints at this in the final game.
We do believe in peace, but we'll defend this land if we have to. If that means the followers go to war, so be it.
These subgroups were comprised of different genders. The scholars were women, the guards were men, and the scouts and initiates were a mixture of both. Though there is conflicting information regarding some groups, as the scholars are sometimes referred to as specifically male or female, and in other cases the scouts are called male only, despite containing at least one female member. Further, a 5th subgroup called scribes are briefly referenced, though it's unknown if they were involved in the quest. Regardless, this is interesting in and of itself, as it suggests the followers originally had a traditional sexist system. When the player heard information theorizing the spy's gender or subgroup, new dialogue options would be unlocked that would allow you to gather more information. Many of the NPCs who would provide clues could also be accused of being the spy and killed, while others would even accuse you depending on your dialogue choices. It's unknown what would have happened if the player killed an innocent character, but perhaps it would have turned the faction hostile, or maybe you wouldn't have discovered your mistake until the ending. The first cut follower we're looking at is Alan, also referred to as Brother Alan, who would have been found in the library. If you ask him about himself, he'd reply, "Oh, well, I mostly study philosophy and stuff. I mean, if we were going to bring about peace, then we need a good grounding for it, right?" You could reply, "The only philosophy you need is a big gun." And he'd amusingly retort, "It's exactly that kind of attitude causing all this trouble. Just chill out, okay?" If you ask about which group the spy could be a part of, he'd say, well, just the scouts and the guards. The guards go and patrol a little bit once in a while. I wanted to be a guard, but well, I got my ass kicked in hand-to-hand combat, so I couldn't go. The scouts? They go a lot further. Sometimes all the way to the cathedral, I think. If you ask him if he ever leaves the library, he'd hint that the spy was a part of the scouts. No? Why would I? I just like to read. And anyhow, only scouts really get to go anywhere. Another cut follower was named Jake, and he was the second in command of the faction. Despite being cut, Nicole mentions him when asked about Jake and tell me about.
Jake is second in command.
She also has another voiced line about him, which presumably would have been used in response to being asked about the spy, but this line was disabled in the final game.
Talk to Jake. He knows more about that.
Jake was reputedly a good fighter, but would decline sparring you because he was too busy helping Nicole. You could badger him about a fight afterwards and call him a wimp, eventually causing him to no longer speak to you. A cut variable reveals that if the player pissed Nicole off, Jake would have kicked you out of the library. When asked about the spy, Jake would state, I just said we have a spy around here. I think it may be one of the guards that is the spy, though it could be a scout. Those are the only two groups that have access to the children. When asking for leads, the player would be told, nothing really. The only things I really know about is that a lot of low-level information is getting to the children. This is not good. Heather thinks that it's either Neil or Peter. He also has a notable line that's potentially related to an entirely different cut quest. I have a package for you from Gabriel, a reference to the leader of the Gunrunners. This appears to be linked to two unused variables, left bomb, which tracks if the player has left a bomb at the follower's library, and destroy followers, which tracks if the player delivered the bomb. There's nothing like this in the final game, however, but it would make sense that a gang that exists solely to sell weapons wouldn't be fond of a group of pacifists. The Gunrunners also have an unused tell me about supporting this narrative when asked about the followers. A group of peace lovers hiding out south of here. We should just get rid of them. This unused quest might be a leftover from the gang war in Adatum between the Rippers and Blades, as the Gunrunners were profiting by selling weapons to both sides, while the followers attempted to stop the violence. To help deduce the identity of the spy, the player could also talk to a cut character named Neil. He was intended to be the leader of the followers' guards, and was the head of the investigation into the spy. The player could receive the quest from him if they had low intelligence, as he has a line that reads, "You are simple enough to find the person that the others are too smart to find. There is a spy around here giving our secrets to the children. Find the spy, kill the spy, go." When asked about leads, he'd tell you, the only thing that we know so far is that the person has access to the Children's Cathedral. I think it may be one of our scouts. If you ask him why the spy couldn't be a guard, he'd say, I'm quite certain. They only have access to the halls of the followers. They are not allowed outside. You could also tell him, I think you are the leak, die. Unrelated to the quest, you could tell Neil, I can train the followers in some skills for war. Maybe your chances will improve. Likely after a fade to black transition, he'd say, thank you for your teachings. Now we have a chance to beat back those children. A variable still tracks if the player has trained them, but it's unclear what effect this would have had in game. Another cut character was Peter, the leader of the follower scouts. Initially, he would have told you that he was too busy to talk, but you could pester him into saying, fine, it doesn't look like I will get rid of you any other way. It seems that we are having a security problem. You want to help? You find the problem. Apart from this line, he doesn't actually help the player figure out the spy's identity, but it seems likely his dialogue would have been expanded if the quest was completed. There's also 30 cut named characters that would have made up the guards, scouts, and initiates. In one line they tell you that there was a spy around and you could reply, I know, I am selling your secrets to them, resulting in them attacking you. When asked about the spy they'd say, not really. The only thing that I can think of is that the person would have to have access to some information and have access to the outside. You may want to look into the initiates or scouts. If you told them, "I am sure you were just imagining things," they'd say this line before attacking. "I think you were the double agent, trying to trick me, I see. Well, now you die." The combat barks for the scouts sound nothing like the final version of the faction, including "one less vermin in the boneyard," "you're messing with the wrong people," and "I don't see anything. Wait, look at the firepower on that mother." The guards' combat lines make more sense for the most part though. Stuff like, "I will hold my position, you get out of here, go," and defend the settlement. The initiates have various floating lines about the quest like, "I hear that someone has been taking our knowledge to the children. Only scouts are allowed out after sunset. We have lost a lot of people because of that spy. I overheard Neil say that the spy was probably one of the new people, and please find the spy soon." They also have various lines hinting at the followers' more violent incarnation, like, "I can't wait to fight the children, and I wonder if Nicole will actually let us use this fighting technique." The final NPC in the quest is Heather, a member of the Scouts and the spy the quest revolved around. She was originally a member of the followers before joining the Children of the Cathedral at some point prior to the player's arrival. She has a hidden description in her text file that states, "Heather is a female. She has a sweet but discerning quality about her. She acts as though she is trying to hide something and does a really good job of confusing the matter for people. Elusive and evasive. She will play on anything that you give her to work with." In one line, the player could come on to her and she'd reply, "Thank you, but I am already spoken for. I think it is time for you to leave." When asked about the spy, she'd say, "I am not certain who it is. I think it may be either a guard or a scholar. They keep sneaking into the Children's Cathedral at night." When questioned about the scouts, she'd say, "True. We scouts do many raids on the children and to much loss lately. This spy cost us dearly." In some cases, she'd accuse Peter, like mentioning, "Sounds like a good thought. I've noticed Peter never gets attacked much in the raids. I think he may be the one." Neil would have suspected that she was the spy and the player could ask her about it. She'd reveal that he thought that because, quote, "Because I am the new scout. I've only been here for a year and the trouble started about 5 months ago." You could retort, "I think Neil may be right," or "I think Neil may be the spy. I'll go check into it." Heather would try to cover her tracks by accusing Neil in turn, saying, "What is there not to know? He has access to the children. He works during the night when most are asleep. It has to be him." If you agreed to look into Neil, she'd say, "Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me. Once you get proof, kill him." In some dialogue, she'd give you reason to believe that she was the spy, like saying, "If you need information, look to Nicole. She thinks she knows everything." Or, "I'm sorry, I'm just a bit jumpy." There seems to be only one line that actually confirms her treachery, and in it, the player could bribe her 300 caps. She'd then reveal herself by telling you, "There will be a raid on the south end of the Children's Stronghold. Now go." Interestingly, a dev note here reveals the real-world value of a cap, stating, "Caps are a form of money equivalent to $1 each." If the player outright accused her, she'd say the following line before attacking. "I am truly sorry that you think that way. I cannot have someone think I am a spy. I will remove you from service." After killing her and completing the quest, many of the followers would have unique lines congratulating you for taking her out. Neil would say, "Good job on finding and removing Heather. Her meddling nearly got everyone killed. I wish there was something more we could do." Jake would state, "I knew it was Heather all along. She was deceitful from the start. I should have told everyone what I thought at first." Peter would congratulate you. "Good job on taking out Heather. I should have known it was her. She always seemed to disappear in the raids. Here, take this and go." While Talius would mention, "Excellent job on removing from our midst that dissembler." The followers' guards would tell you, "Great job on wasting that agent. Now we may have a chance against those children." This was easily one of the most complex quests in the game and had a very interesting quest structure, but unfortunately that same complexity is likely what led to it being cut. There's also 3 other cut characters unrelated to the spy quest, and the first we're looking at is Amber, a teacher of the followers. She would have offered to teach you herbalism, which likely would have improved your survival skill. She also would have sung several songs to you, though it's unknown what effect this would have had. You could choose between 4 song options: In the Wake of the Shadow, The Ballad of Ares, In Remembrance of Artemis, and The Rising of the Dawn's Chariot. If you told her you were here to kill things, she'd say, "I am truly sorry to hear that. The followers believe in peace at all costs. For that reason, I've renounced violence. Good evening." If the player trained the other followers to fight, she'd no longer speak to you and state, "You have no need of my talents. You have taught peaceful people the ways of war. I mourn for them now." This is interestingly reminiscent of Daniel and the tribes and honest hearts. The other 2 lost characters are Dr. Salone MD and Nurse Marnie. It's unknown where they would have been found, but they would have alternated shifts acting as a healer. The player could heal their wounds by talking to them or spend a few hours learning trauma care, which would have improved your doctor skill. In the final game, the followers are a relatively small group, but all of this shows how much more the dev team wanted to flesh them out. I'm not sure I can think of any other group that has nearly 40 cut named characters in a single game. However, I do think the completely pacifist depiction ended up making them more interesting. Some of these changes would have made Fallout into an even better game. Ultimately though, all of this was left on the cutting room floor.